Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up this week with an album reaction. It is a day late, but I suppose that's fine. We're just going to get into it. We're going to be checking out the entire Dopethrone album from Electric Wizard. I vaguely recall both of these, both the album and the band name, and I see that they do have a title track. It's track 8 called Dopethrone. It sounds kind of familiar. I'm wondering if maybe we check that out. I probably should have checked real quick, but you know what? Better to go in with no expectations than to have expectations set from something I've heard previously and then it just not get delivered. So, we're going to dive straight into this with the first track, Vinum Sabbathi. Alright, let's see what's going on here.
When you get into one of these groups, there's only a couple ways you can get out. One is death, the other is mental institutions.
That is a very crunchy sound. Just a wild bass tone. Very big. And that ridiculously large bass kick certainly helps with the size of this song. Yeah, it feels like my head is right next to the bass kick. It is a ridiculously large sound. We have these really nice riffs in the guitars. Interesting, the vocal layering as well. We have a center channel and a right hand one. Alright, this might be going into the next, but this just sounds like a really nice fade out here, so I'm just going to pause it right there before we get going. Yeah, so I think this is interesting just because, can I see? Yeah, I can't see lengths there. I know this album is like a 75, 80 minutes long. It's a pretty lengthy album, and there's only 9 tracks on it. So this was only 3 minutes long, which pushes us to, about 80 minutes across the next 8 tracks, which is an average of 10 minutes a track. We're going to be seeing a lot of lengthy stuff going on. It's interesting to start the album off with such a short song at just 3 minutes. It pales in comparison to the rest of the album. If I remember correctly, I don't have a way to pull up the track lengths. So we're just going to roll with it, I suppose. it was interesting how at home this kind of felt. Has anybody seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World? The movie, not the books, because the books don't come with audio. Scott Pilgrim plays bass in a band, and the band kind of reminds me of this. And I had to look what year this came out. This was 2000, which was prior to the film, I believe. And I wonder if either this music or this style of music, maybe something adjacent to this band, was the inspiration for it. I had never heard any music like that at that point in my life when I watched the movie for the first time. And it's interesting because it's an abrasive rock, right? So let's break this down a little bit. What's going on here? We have a guitar playing a rather simple guitar line through a majority of this. I think there's two riffs really that get played, and neither one of them are intricate. They're all one bar riffs. Or I should say both of them are one bar riffs. Our bass is really just laying down a bass line, again working on a one bar riff. Our drums are bass and snare ideas that alternate against each other to create a little bit of a groove with some cymbal work that lays down the 4/4, and it works primarily within 4-bar loops. And then our vocals are clean. We'll get into that in a second, but I believe that what is performed, what is coming out of the vocal cords, is clean. Maybe there's a little bit of grit on it, but it is primarily a clean sound with a moving melody line. And much like the guitars, it is working within a simple melodic idea that gets repeated often. And that's the whole song, right? This could be something that would be played on the radio. However, what they did was they took this rock foundation and grittied it up to a point where it is no longer palatable in that realm. The guitar, you can barely even hear the native tone of the guitar. It really is all fuzz and crackle and buzzing. Same thing goes with the bass, which is just this monstrous growling bite to it. The bass kick on the drums is extremely punchy and forward facing, almost like my head is right next to it and I can feel the air and the vibrations coming off of it. And our vocals are the exact opposite. If everything else is amplified up to be more aggressive than what it is, the vocals are pulled away. They're pushed down in the mix, they're hyper compressed. They're grittied and the gritty and crunchy up kind of mixes with everything else. But it almost sounds like it's coming out of an old-timey radio. Everything else is clear, precisely placed in the mix, and the vocals are stuffed down into it like it's coming out of an old radio. We kind of get that condensing of it. And a lot of the core character of the timbre of the vocals, the vocal aspect of it, the voice, I should say, has been removed. It's been scrubbed away by this distortion and compression. It's interesting then to note that everything else, again, is amplified while the vocals are diminished, although everything is grittied and dirtied up. It is a very aggressive, in-your-face sound. It is not designed to be clean in any way. It is not designed to be palatable or beautiful or anything like that. It is designed to be aggressive and gritty and disgusting. And they do a fantastic job of getting that across. I was a little intrigued by the vocals. I'm curious where they're going to go with this, if they're going to stick with them. But I was expecting something heavier given our guitar and bass and drums in our intro. And when the vocals came in as clean but with effects on it, I was kind of taken aback a little. I was expecting, well, growls, to be honest. But anything kind of harsh, even compressed cleans, distorted cleans, I think would have worked well as well. But instead we got these cleans that are dirtied up electronically. Like I said, there might be a little bit of grit, natural grit placed on them, but for the most part, they feel very clean to me and then processed. And it's just not what I was expecting at all. This is very interesting. Like I said, you take all the production off of it and you've got a rock track. It really is the production that changes everything. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into the lyrics and move on with this review is structure. Is there structure? Everything sounds the same to me. I mentioned that there were 2 guitar riffs that I picked up on, but I didn't really feel a pattern. Just sometimes I'd check into the bass, check into the drums, check into the lyrics, the vocals, check back to the guitar. Oh, that sounds a little different. When did that happen? Like, I don't really feel these big shifts. So any of the changes are going to be very minor if there are any changes, any structural movement here. And through that, it makes me a little concerned about the rest of the album. This is an intro, and it could be very different from the rest of the album, so I'm kind of hoping it is. But this was 3 minutes of pretty much the same thing for an extended period of time, and 2.5 minutes into it, 3 minutes into it, I was ready to move on. I was glad to hear the fade out moving into the next concept, and I really hope we begin to explore more ideas rather than these really lengthy concepts. But maybe that's what they're going for, maybe that's their vibe. If that's, if that's what happens, I mean, that's fine, right? Tools in a toolbox. Just because it doesn't work for me, just because I'm not the target audience, doesn't make it wrong or bad, just not my cup of tea. But let's get moving forward. We'll see what the rest of the album has for us after a word from our sponsor. No, after we get into the lyrics. Oh yeah, this had some sort of spoken word intro. When you get into one of these groups, there's only a couple ways you can get out. One is death, the other is mental institutions. Okay. I mean, that kind of with the grittiness of the tone and everything kind of paints a bleak picture as a thesis statement to the entire album. I mean, to the track for sure as well, but the album as a whole, this is the first thing you hear when you pop it in, and you have this super crunchy, gritty guitar. I don't remember if any of the other instruments have come in yet. I think actually, it wasn't a guitar. We started with the bass, didn't we? Just a huge bite, super gritty, very dirty, and very oppressive, very large sound. And then you get this sound bite that says, if you got here, there's only 2 ways out, and one of them's death. So, I mean, that's a pretty big statement. It does look like we have verse, chorus, but again, I didn't feel that musically, so we'll see how the rest of the album goes. I don't necessarily need big sweeping changes, but I mean, like I said, I didn't even realize sometimes that we had changed guitar riffs to signal that we moved on to a new idea. A lot of the times, I just kind of came back to the guitar. Oh, that's different. Nothing else felt different. What changed? When did we change? So verse 1 says, extracted essence of the stone, narcotic of the faceless one, I awake on planet black, freezing moon, no turning back. Chorus says, forbidden sorcery, Vinum Sabbathi. I don't know what Vinum Sabbathi means, but forbidden sorcery is kind of putting my mind in here. We are the electric wizard, but we're also on a Dopethrone. So I'm kind of looking for drug vibes, drug trip vibes, anything like that. But I do like the idea of starting to track off also with forbidden sorcery. The idea of narcotics of the faceless one has a relationship to drug use, but extracting essences from stones and utilizing narcotics to wake up on a different planet with a freezing moon can also be very sorcery-like, very wizardry. Verse 2 says, now I'm a slave to the black drug, forced to serve this black god. I thought myself a master of the arts. This dimension of misery is my penance. So once again, we could look at this literally. and say that he has used wizardry. He used essence of this stone and this other narcotic and created a something, a potion, a portal, whatever have you, wizardry style, and transported themselves to a black planet where they're now a slave, and they thought that they were better than this, but they have put themselves in a dimension of misery. But we can also look at this as a drug trip, right? I don't know the extracted essence of the stone. I don't know. Could be relationship to how they get this narcotic. It might be based upon some stone, some dust off of stone. I have no idea. But they take this narcotic, and they go through a drug trip, right? And they wake up on a planet, and there's no turning back because you just have to ride your high out. But you can also get addicted to the drug. So he says now he's a slave to the black drug. Like that can be taken very literally there rather than metaphorically. It says, I thought I was a master of the art. So maybe they thought they were capable of holding their own as far as the drug use goes. And this dimension of misery is their penance. So it kind of goes along the same lines that they thought they were in control of what they were doing, but it was actually the other aspect, whether that's sorcery or drug use, that was in control of them. Either way, they are now in a dimension of misery. So I wonder if this is going to continue on. I forgot to look up. Let me check this out real quick. Let me see if this is a concept album. Because I've had a couple of videos in the past where I've approached the album as a concept album and it wasn't one, so I was trying to make connections that weren't there and it kind of hindered my review. It does not look like it is one though. There is a small discrepancy here though. So our track lengths do get very lengthy. We have a 15 and 11. And this is where the discrepancy comes in. There's a 46-second song on here. It says on the original release, there is a 21-minute song called Dopethrone. However, that song is only 11 minutes on subsequent re-releases, which instead have a track 9, which did not exist before, called Mind Transferral. I'm on a re-release, I'm going to assume, because I have Mind Transferral. But I'm curious why Dopethrone was shortened. Unless it was one of those that is just... Oh, okay. So Dopethrone was 10 minutes, 10 and a half minutes on both issues, but followed by silence in the original. There was a 55-second sound clip at the end of the, 10-minute silence from 2020. The reissue gets rid of the sound clip, has it end in 30 seconds of silence, moves on to the bonus track, which kind of technically makes it a hidden track, which is Mind Transferral. However, the sound clip does appear to be at the end of Mind Transferral now, which ends at 9:36, followed by silence until 14 minutes, and then the sound clip from 2020 goes on. Okay, that's good to know. Because if I had silence at the end of Mind Transferral without knowing that, might have been a little odd. Anyways, this does not seem to be a not a cover, concept album. So, I'm not going to try as hard to connect all the songs, but maybe we'll see some recurring themes. As usual, got my trusty dry erase marker, be taking notes. We're going to be moving into the next track, which, if I recall, was quite lengthy. 15. I think this is the 15-minute one. All right. So yeah, let's get into it. Don't really need a recap of what we just listened to. Let's just dive in. Pull this back up. Shift the title over. This is the Funeralopolis? Yes, it is. Okay. For some reason, I thought that was... No, okay, let's get into it. So much fuzz. Even when the guitar's not playing, it still has all this feedback to it. I can't tell if that's guitar slides or someone screaming. Yeah, so there's a very like hard rock bluesiness going on here. Yeah, so I'm really loving this, the duality here. Occasionally they're together, but occasionally we get these ideas of counterpoint. Such a big sound. My audio visualizer is locked. It is not moving at all. I would love to see this inside of a DAW and to check out the waveform of it. It almost sounds like the vocals are pushed through a megaphone and then recorded and then additionally distorted and compressed. Also interesting, I think the vocals are left hands. Not much, but enough. Yeah. So it feels like in the verse we just sit on one chord and our chorus is chord, chord, drop, drop. really hear the bass in these lines. Yeah, there's that 16th notes. But it's so wide, so big, that it's really hard to distinguish any of it. Interesting. I haven't heard that. A little bit of solo going on over here. Not really, harmony. Alright, sounds like we're going straight into the next one again. So I'm going to take a moment to stop here. I was really pleased with the beginning of this track. We started off with this hard rock bluesiness. I really loved it. We kind of backed down the width and power and distortion of some of our guitars and just kind of let them go at it. We had some really nice harmony, we had some counterpoint, we had these dueling lines, and they all had a really nice rhythmic vibe to it that we continued to hear and hear with that do 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 do. Oh my god, they were swinging. They were playing with swing eights this whole time. They did switch to straight 16ths on that really fast. Yeah, yeah. So they inject the straight 16ths amongst the swung eights with such a heavy track. And over here swinging their eights. I can't get over that. But yeah, they had this nice hard rock style that kind of gave it this really moody, funky, syncopated sort of back and forth there. And that lasted quite a while. We're probably looking at 2 or 3 minutes, I think, in that intro. And I was really enjoying that as a strong counter to what we started in, which was, like I said, rock with a lot of grit and grime on top of it. And I thought it was just a really nice, at least for me, a calming section. It introduced something that I could latch on to, which was a bit more melodic writing, even if it kind of ventured a little bit into some jamminess that I think overstayed its welcome just a hair. From here, we transitioned into the meat of the track, the remaining 5 minutes of it, which is a return to form. Lots of grit, lots of power, lots of width and compression and distortion. I think our vocals were even more compressed and distorted than they were last time, especially once we get to the end of the track, when our vocalist begins to really apply their own grit and distortion underneath it. I also mentioned that the vocals sounded to me at this point like they were played through or sung through a megaphone into a microphone that was then compressed, further compressed and distorted. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened here. I mean, it's possible that it's all done in post, but I think it'd just be a lot easier to do the megaphone thing because it really comes off as that. Um, but for a majority of this, I can't really say much else from what I've already said in the last track regarding the music. Our drums are basically there to be very powerful, to lead the rhythm, and that's it. Our bass follows the rhythm and provides punchiness and weightiness and width, and our guitar is there to fill in anything else that needs to be filled as far as power and width. Again, I've said that for all three instruments. I mean it for all three instruments. And also to play the lead melody, the lead riff. Again, still working on 1 to 2 bar ideas though. Nothing here is really going for anything exceptionally musical or melodical or anything big on pacing or phrasing or anything like that. This is rock music at its most original, not original as in novel, but original as in classic. Really looking at the idea of the origins of metal and how they're heavily riff based and more about the mood and the feel rather than anything that's more traditionally musical, like melody and harmony and stuff like this. All of our instruments here, for the most part, follow along with what each other are doing because they're there to build a specific mood. They're there to create texture for the vocals to sing over, or in this case, under or within. The vocals are just not prominent in either of these tracks. And through this extreme focus of putting these instruments in a singular unified role, there's just not a lot to talk about as far as that's concerned. I'm kind of figuring that for the rest of this album, that's going to be what I talk about when it comes to the music, is any odd melodic ideas that might pop up, like the intro to this track, and then saying the rest was what we expected. And that's not to say it's bad. As I've said before, tools in a toolbox, they are emulating one of the oldest ways to create metal music. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and there's definitely a huge audience for it. Not usually my cup of tea, but I'm really enjoying the vibe on these. I don't know how long that's going to last. The first song definitely gave me some stank face, but I'm warming up to it. I don't know how long the novelty of this is going to last. Maybe by track 5, I'm going to wish that we lightened up a little bit and went somewhere, but it's possible that I just really am in the mood for this doom. Is this doom? It feels like a very heavy doom. That's the thing. And like a light doom, as I don't know what to classify this as. It's heavy like doom is, but it's a bit too noisy for doom, at least what I think of doom, which tends to be uh, stuff like, why can't I think of that band? I think I have one of their albums too, and I just can't think of their name. Nope, that's not it. I was gonna say Monochromatic Black. That is not doom metal though, and that isn't gonna work. I can't think of their name. Oh, Zapata is what I think of with doom, or Oceans of Slumber. And those might just be more of a modern doom. Maybe this is more classic doom. I don't know, but just the width of the tone and the heaviness is not what I expect. But then I'm also like, okay, I kind of get a doom vibe, but it's too fast for doom. It's too upbeat. It's too bouncy. The swinging is not doom at all. So maybe it's not doom. I don't know where to place this then. I'm still kind of getting rock but gritty, and I don't know what that's called. Maybe you guys have told me before and I'm just forgetting. Maybe I haven't been introduced to it yet. I don't know. You guys, genre and me just don't mix. But it's working for me right now. And if it is Doom, that makes sense because for whatever reason, Doom is one of those metal genres that I've just really connected with. Not usually vocals like this though, but I do think being partly clean really helps them, at least in my books, my bias listening to them. Uh, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't remember what it was. I think it was that ending, but I can't remember. You know what? This is going to be a little unorthodox. I'm going to rewind this a couple of seconds and see what happened on this ending. 'Cause I remember wanting to talk about it, and I don't want to bypass it just because I can't remember. So here we go. That's what it was. Okay, there's actually a couple of things because I forgot I took notes. I do want to talk about that ending though. Where did those UFO synthy sounds come from? Is there a synthesizer in here? Is that somehow being done by the guitars? I don't know. We have the doo 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 doo, but then like with it, there's this warble, and I don't know if that's part of the guitar sound. It sounds like the guitar morphs into it, but I don't know if it really morphs into it or if it's like a production trick. You know, it could be anywhere. It could be in the chain of all the pedals. It could be a setting on the amp. It could be completely done by the engineer after the recording has been done. I don't know, but it's interesting. The first track laid down a rock vibe. The second track starts out hard rock, moves into some straight up rock music, and finishes off with this synthy idea to finish the song out with these hard wash pans. It's interesting to find the little variations, the little nuances, because every song has been this loud, biting doom metal. And I think that foundation can be felt, at least in these two songs already, in every aspect of them. But they find ways to include ideas from other genres and styles in there as well. Whether it's a vibe and length that would be more accommodating of radio rock, or the inclusion of dueling guitars, or dueling guitar solos, or a synthesizer tone. It's still all doom metal at its heart, but it's being morphed and molded into these other ways that help create some variation that I'm quite enjoying. Feedback. I gotta talk about feedback. Actually, you know what I should do is write variety down so that I don't forget that again, because that is something I definitely need to be looking forward to in the rest of the album. Feedback though, the song start. I don't remember if it was the start of the song or the start of the song proper after we got out of that hard rock dueling guitar intro, but there was just that buzzing, right? If you've ever had your guitar amp turned on, your guitar plugged into it, and you've got the gain cranked up, right? And you got your overdrive turned on, maybe you've got some pedals to increase the drive, um, and you just got that crackly hum. You're not playing anything, but your volume and your everything is just so high up, your gain and everything, that just the strings existing and all of the circuitry in your electric guitar are creating just this natural layer of buzzing, of humming. They use that in the music, or they use that in the song as like atmospheric sound or environmental sound. Interesting decision, I'd say overall. Most bands either try to cut that out or try not to get it at all. And they are just like, put it in. Our guitar will come in a few bars, just let the humming exist before it. And that's there's something about it. Obviously it just kind of lines up with the grittiness of the track as a whole. That not just its presence as a tone, but also its presence as a decision shows kind of how gritty they want this to be. But I do think it's an interesting decision nonetheless because it's so rare to hear that. Tying into that, though, is just the wall of sound because the overdrive and the gain and the volume are all maxed out on this. I told you when the song started improper with that first heavy part, my visualizer was static, right? So I have two bars like this for left channel and right channel, and they move up as each channel gets louder. And usually, assuming that they're in line. They're very rarely in line, but because I don't want to do the two-hand thing again, they bounce up and they move a little bit, right? Not every tone is going to be the same volume as the second prior to it. Maybe you're going to have a cymbal crash that makes, just a tad bit louder than the previous one. There's going to be movement to it. No, not this. This was solid. Both bars were solid. And I bet you anything, if I toss this into a waveform analyzer, it's just going to be a wall. Because, like, usually when you get waveforms, they're kind of spiky. If you've ever opened up, if you've ever messed with live audio in a DAW, or you decided to take your shot at a podcast and you recorded half of an episode and never edited it, never released it. You've seen the waveform though when you've recorded your voice or your instrument, and it's all those spikies, right? And you kind of see they go on both sides because they show both channels up and down. Yeah, this would not have all the spikies. This would just be a wall. And I wonder, I've always kind of visualized the audio. The wall of sound is literally a sonic wall in front of you. The sound is coming at your face. But I wonder if the term might have come from the producer engineer side when they're recording and editing and messing with all this. It's literally a wall rather than the spiky bouncing up and down to showcase the nuances of the tone. But this is also a really good place to talk about compression and how that works. And compression tends to take off the highest parts. Instead of having the spikies, you can aim for the part where you delete all the spikies and all you get is the flat roof and the flat floor, making the solid line. And that's what I mean, completely unrelated to, kind of related to this, talking about the vocals having their timbre removed and destroyed. This is what I mean when I say that compression and distortion can destroy that core timbre, because you're actually clipping. Your volume's too high and it's erasing the little nuances up top and flattening everything out. Not anything I can do in this video, but definitely something I should do in the future is little videos about these topics, sort of like tutorials. I'm not a music engineer, so I don't know how in depth that area of music can go. I'd probably do better with theory stuff, but it'd be really cool to have a scripted video that I've edited in post rather than everything done live, and I can show these little things going on so I can better talk about them. Maybe that's something I'll do. Anyways, just pure wall of sound though, bonkers stuff. And the last thing I want to talk about before we hit the lyrics here is just how big of a sound. Just kind of tying everything together. How big of a sound this is that when we get to those really fast 16th notes, that da 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 da, it's so muddy. You can barely hear the attacks themselves. To know, I'm still not even sure they're 16th notes, right? To my ears, sometimes when it happened, I felt like they just kind of strummed and just let it ring, because there's so much width and reverb and distortion. compression and destruction and all of it, that it just kind of muddies everything up. There's this overlap between the release and the attack. And to contrast that, go back to the times that we've listened to tech death, and when they're playing really fast notes and you and you can hear each individual hit and the in space between the hit before the next note, and just that real preciseness. This is the exact opposite of that, where the releases are bleeding into the attacks. And so it kind of feels like just a single note at times. And yeah, that's just how loud and big it is. I don't think that they could have cleanliness in their faster parts, not because of their musicianship, but because of the sound and production that they're aiming for. It literally will not allow for that physically because of the way that they're recording, the volume that they're at, the type of compression and distortion they have on. Just to kind of put that in perspective about how loud they're playing, or recording at least. Alright, so Funeralopolis's lyrics. We have done Funeralopolis, haven't we? This song sounds familiar. Not the music, but the title and maybe some of these lyrics. I'm curious now. What is this band called? Electric Wizard. Oh, yeah, we did Funeralopolis. Did we? Yeah, we did. This was, just to show you guys how much music I go through in such a short amount of time and how quickly things can leave my brain. This was done on January 3rd of this year, pretty much exactly 6 months ago. Almost to the day. And all I can remember are kind of vague ideas about. Oh, and we did it for Wall of Sound Week, which, yeah, 100%. That is a good choice for that theme. All right. So, yeah, moving on with the lyrics, though. For reals this time. Funeral planet, dead black asteroid, mausoleum, this world is a tomb, human zombies, staring blank faces. So, are we still on that black planet with the black god and a black drug? Well, he says we're on a dead black asteroid. I don't know. This isn't a concept album, at least not from my very limited research of looking at one paragraph. But the songs do bleed into each other, so should we take the lyrics together? I don't know. Let's see where this goes. Anyways, I think it's pretty obvious right there. It says it's a funeral planet. There's just lots of death. There's mausoleums. The world is a tomb. There's human zombies. They have blank faces. No reason to live. They're already dead in the womb. Death shroud existence, slave for a pittance, condemned to die before I could breathe. Millions are screaming. The dead are still living. The earth has died, yet no one has seen. So yeah, I think that, it all paints a really strong picture of death before life, death in life, death after life. There's just death everywhere. You can't escape it on this planet. I don't care, the world means nothing, life has no meaning, my feelings are numb, faceless masses filled like gravestones, sacrificed for the glory of one. Funerary cities, flesh press factories. Corporate maggots feed on the carrion. Funeralopolis, gray morgue apocalypse. Black clouds form to block out the sun. Yeah, again, very straightforward. I don't think there's any metaphor here. This person ceases to care because nothing has meaning. They've become numb to everything, to all the death that is happening around them. It says that there's mass graves, that people are sacrificed for the glory of one. I'm going to assume that we can take that in the idea of a ruling class. Maybe there is a king of the world, king of the planet, but I mean, we can just kind of take that as the peasants are killed in sacrificing glory for the king, no matter how big of a scale you want to take that. It could be the peasants of the world for the king of the world, or, the poor versus the rich. If we want to take glory of the one as more of a metaphorical thing for a larger one ruling class. It says that there's entire cities based on death, that the flesh press factories, corporate maggots feed on carrion, which is interesting. The gray morgue apocalypse, there's black clouds that block out the sun. Basically, there's just death and destruction everywhere, and we can even look at the black clouds blocking out the sun as a form of the dead planet. A lot of this focuses on living deaths. People are dying, people are sacrificed. There's corporate maggots. These are, people who work in the corporate machine. But the black clouds are a way of killing the planet rather than killing the people on it. We go back into our opening line about the black asteroid, the mausoleum, the tomb. And then we we did this. Yeah. Then the death shroud existence, slaves condemned to die, millions are screaming, the earth has died, yet no one has seen. Funeralopolis is the planet of the dead. Then we have nuclear warheads ready to strike. The world is screwed, let's end it tonight. Constantly, over and over and over and over. So this is interesting because it looks like it is entirely about Earth. Even calls it Earth. The Earth has died is a line right in it about how those in power are doing nothing but destroying anyone and everything. They not only kill people, but they also murder the planet. And at the press of a button, we are ready to put the entire planet behind us. As he says at the end, there's so many nuclear warheads that are ready to strike, so let's just end it tonight. It's interesting, though, that this comes directly after and is connected to our previous song, which seems to have been about either sorcery or a drug trip leading this person to a different planet that was also blackened and full of slaves. And do we take this to mean that the drug trip is just an alternate take on Earth? That this is just a means to express the narrator slash lyricist views on Earth through the lens of a drug trip that actually looks at Earth, although it necessarily isn't Earth. I don't know. This is kind of strange. Maybe it's not a concept album and I should just focus on that, and the songs aren't connected even though they are sonically connected. There's no break between them. I should view their lyrics as wholly separate, even though there's a lot of recurring motifs, calling the planet itself black and talking about death and slavery within them. I don't know. I guess we're just going to move on and see what happens. This next track is 4 tracks in one. It's called Weird Tales, or Electric Forest, or Golgotha, or Altar of Melektos. There's not a lot of lyrics here, so don't know what's going on there. So is this a 15-minute song, if I remember correctly? Wikipedia had it listed as Weird Tales, and then movement 1, 2, and 3 within it called Electric Forest, Golgotha, and Altar of Melektos. So maybe these are the 3 Weird Tales? Like the track is Weird Tales, but then we have these 3 tales within them. I don't know. But I guess let's just dive into it. 15 minutes ahead of us. See where this takes us. Also, we have like 15 seconds left at the end of Funeralopolis, so we're going to move back into that. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, even as this is fading out, we still have a rather solid volume. It's warbling a little. There's a very small difference between the verse and the chorus, but it is so tiny. Yeah, they both focus on this one, and then they change. Both of them do that, but the difference is that the hook is a little lower. Yeah, we cut it down to halftime here. Yeah, using that pick scrape, that's pretty gnarly effect. See, this feels very doomy to me. This is certainly, this is Doom. There's also some very minor timing things going on that I'm really enjoying. I think it stands out a little more because of the slower tempo, but it gives it that human feel, and I dig that. It took me a second to realize we have dueling guitars going on here, just because I can barely make out notes against this distortion. either they're slowing down as they go, or they're using little pockets of fermatas here and there, but the tempo is not consistent. Right there, we sped up a little bit on beat 3. And now they're ahead of the beat. Now they're behind the beat. Yeah, it's bonkers that they are all along for the ride on this. The tempo is very loose, and yet everybody's right in time with each other. It's very impressive. Are they losing volume, or am I just becoming acclimated to the sounds? Because the visualizer says we're still at the same volume, but this is getting weaker. Yeah, it feels like it's getting quieter, but it isn't. Here we go again with the synthesizer warble stuff. right, our first full stop. And it comes in, what, 25 minutes into the album? Yeah, give or take. 27 minutes into the album. Wow. It's also the longest track on the album we just finished. Okay. Dang, if I wasn't bored on the last half of that, though, I mean, 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes is a pretty long time to fill making music. I don't think, personally, I've written anything 15 minutes long. Um, and if there's anything that I'm going to listen to that is in that range, it's going to be a rather dynamic track. Pretty much the opposite of this. And that's, again, not to say it's bad. I do want to reiterate, I don't know why I always feel like I need to say this every time I say something negative during these album reviews, but it's just not my cup of tea. That doesn't mean it's bad or that they created bad music or are bad composers or anything like that. Just really not what I look for in music. I really feel like the last 7 to 8 minutes on this track are hyper meditative, and that's what they're designed to be used for. I can't believe anybody would actively listen to the last 8 minutes here because I just did, and it was not fun. um, I'm not going to lie, there were a couple of times I just kind of checked out and just let my mind wander. Which I suppose I say that like it's a bad thing, like, I apologize for checking out while I'm listening to this music, but I think that's honestly what you're supposed to do with it. I think that's what most people would do while they're listening to it. Either that or utilize it as background music. It's very difficult to actively listen to the last half of this track, and I think that it's by design, not necessarily because Electric Wizard were like, no active listening. We will make this the least fun thing to do. But just by design, not every song or moment of a song is going to be designed to be actively listened to. That's not how all music should be created or how all music is created. So, like I said, it's not an active decision to say, no, we're going to make music that just doesn't work like that. It's just from what they wanted to make and how they went about making it. So, with our first two sections, though, they followed in a lot of the same themes that we have seen so far with the hard rock sections of single licks that are 1 to 2 bars long, all the instruments laying into the same rhythmic and melodic components, vocals on top that are heavily compressed, and just a very large sound, really going for a specific vibe and atmosphere more so than anything else. It is a very oppressive, large, fuzzy atmosphere. The unique aspects to this was somewhere 3 or 4 minutes in when we hit a halftime feel, and then somewhere 5 to 6 minutes in when we hit the not sludge, doom, I suppose. I feel. I don't know why every time I think of slow sections, I think of sludge. You guys have shown me a million times. Sludge is not always slow. Sludge is a texture thing. It's a production thing. But when I think of slow, I think of sludge. I think of tar. Doom is not usually the word that comes to my mind. But yeah, we hit our first, what I feel like, full real Doom section. And that's what I want to talk about real quick before we move on. And I do kind of mean real quick because there's only one thing I really got to talk about here. And that is time. I didn't pick it up on the halftime section. Maybe that's because we were in and out of it so quickly to get back to the final lyrical section. But when we hit that super slow moment, I tried to demonstrate as best I could with conducting to show that their tempo was fluctuating. And I'm human as well. I could have been erroring, but the fact is that I tend to when I keep tempo, you guys can see me nodding my head. Occasionally I move my hand, whatever I feel the most right doing when I'm listening to a specific song. I'm typically in time with what they're doing. I have a pretty good natural rhythm to my body, and once I lock into a tempo, I usually stay on it. Again, I'm human, I can fail. I'm not going to say I'm perfect 100% of the time, but I was really trying to keep a steady tempo in my conducting, and they were moving away from it constantly. Sometimes they were speeding up, sometimes they were slowing down. Before I showcased it physically, I was thinking about it and I was counting out the time in my head. So I didn't have, muscle to worry about. This is all just internal rhythm. There's no physical aspect that could alter it. And it was still all over the place. And I like that in practice. I'm not too sure, or in theory, I'm not too sure in practice. I really enjoyed it too much in the larger scheme of things, but at least at the beginning, I was like, this is pretty cool. We have a band who is either as a full unit fluctuating from moving ahead of the beat to behind the beat and everything in between, or we have a band that is always on time with the tempo, but the tempo is constantly in flux. Either or, both of them are kind of bonkers. I don't know which one would be more believable at this point. The end result, though, is a band that is so in sync with each other that they can slip into and out of different rhythmic timings in such a slow section. And I noticed a lot of it was, I mean, everything's on the downbeat, right? Everything's on a downbeat. Nothing's ever on an and or an E or any of the subdivisions. It's always on a beat, on a beat, on a beat. And I think I was conducting a little fast just so I wasn't moving so slow. I needed to keep a little bit of a pace. So at least for me, the hits were on 1 and 3, and 1 and 3. So through that, to me, there's an emphasis on either the 1 or the 3. And sometimes it would be ahead, sometimes it would be behind, but it's never on anything else. We don't change on 2, we don't change on 4, we don't change between beats. So it could be entirely that they have a leader, maybe our guitarist, say, right, playing the guitar, and you're holding out the note, and then you physically lead everybody to land on the next one. And in that way, they can create these micro fermatas or to speed up the rhythm just a little bit. I don't know how much of it is planned, and I think that's something that I would like to know. Yeah, doom metal. Okay. Also says stoner rock, and I can kind of get behind that as well, but maybe not as much. Doom is definitely on here. It also says sludge, but sludge is the third one. I've only listened to a couple sludge tracks, so I can't really comment on that, but yeah, so like I said, sometimes a little ahead, sometimes a little behind, and I feel like the best way to do that is to have a leader. But I am curious how much of it is planned. Is it just, hey guys, every time we change a note, look at me and see if we're gonna be late or early, or is everything meticulously planned where they're counting, okay, we're in bar 37, that means we need to play behind a little bit. Now we're in bar 42, which means that we're going to rush it a little bit. And I mean, that just sounds like it's asking for a lot of problems. Unless these guys just have ridiculous memory, and they would have to be on all of them. And we've checked out some bands that I've said, the performance of this is going to be bonkers because rock bands don't have sheet music in front of them. And just the sheer memorization that's going on is crazy. And as I've said before, I don't know what it is with musicians and memorization, but things just click that way. I mean, I've done marching shows and you have to memorize 15 to 20 minutes of music. And I know that's not quite the same as a 40-minute show, but it's still 15 to 20 minutes of music, sometimes 25 or 30, depending on your show. and you have to memorize all of your marching steps and where you need to be at each beat and each measure, and how you need to get there and what rotations you're doing. Like if you've ever watched a marching band show, whether it's halftime at a college football game, or you just go and watch some DCI stuff. We've checked out drum corps stuff on the channel before. There's a lot of memorization, and it never really clicked for me until doing this channel and talking about how some of these really wild bands are, just must have these massive memories for this kind of stuff. How much, even I have memorized to put on a show before with no music in front of me. Um, so yeah, it's just, it seems absolutely bonkers when I'm like, man, I don't think I could do it now. Right. But at least when I was younger, I could. So I suppose I could do it again. These guys, I don't know how old they are, but we've seen some older bands put on some, prog bands put on some wonderfully fantastic shows, start to finish, even in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So yeah, the human brain is wondrous, but it's still bonkers to think about sometimes. And this would be one of those situations, having to remember all of these micro tempo changes, when to rush, when to go behind, when are we going to speed up 5 whole BPMs. It really makes more sense for there just to be a leader and it to be slightly improvised, giving it that more of a jam band feel like we had at the beginning of the last track, I think it was. We're only in track 3. Yeah, we are only in track 3. I don't know if we're making good time or not. We're almost halfway done with the album. Track wise, I don't know where we are time wise. I guess we're getting pretty close to a third, which means that this video is probably going to run about 3 hours, I think. It's about halfway done, maybe a little over 3, then 3.5, maybe. But yeah, just that whole section just kind of blows my mind. And then our final 5-6 minutes, that section bleeds into this synthesizer droning, and I don't really have much to say about it. It's like 2 synth parts that just kind of repeat and repeat and repeat and drone. I mean, that's what drone is. For like the final 4 or 5 minutes of the track, it's maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. It was a long time. It felt like forever to me. Um, I don't know what to make of it. The first half of the track I can get behind. Even the doomy part just makes sense. It's what I should be expecting from a doom metal band. I'm glad to hear that they finally added one. It took a little bit longer to get through than I was wanting, but there was some cool thing in there. That whole tempo thing was neat. And then it just transitioned into this fuzzy synthesizer, and it just stayed there forever, and I have no idea what to make of any of that, other than, I was talking about how much I enjoyed the variety on this track, and they found a way to bring in electronic sounds into their droning doom metal. So I mean, it's neat that they did it, but god, man, that song could have been cut in half and I would have been fine, maybe even a little more. And for those who might be new to the channel, I'm not advocating for the song to have been cut in half. I just personally, one person, I'm not asking them to appease me, but I would have been happier if somebody made a cut of it. Not necessarily them, just somebody on the internet. There's some neat ideas in here. I just don't need that whole ending. All right, lyrics. It looks like we only have lyrics, if I remember correctly, for like the first 4 minutes of the track. We stopped doing lyrical stuff about the time that we hit the halftime. From ancient Yugoth, black rays emit, evils, narcotics, cyclopean pits, in dark Babylonian towers await, lie dreaming until the time will awake. Yeah, this sounds like fantasy prophecy stuff. So there's an ancient Yugoth. Sounds kind of like some sort of Lovecraftian god to me, but I don't know. Definitely has that vibe, and it is capitalized. It says Black Rays Emit. This is the third song out of 3 that has described something as black. Not necessarily a description of the texture, but always the color. The color black has shown up in all 3 tracks so far. It emits evil. Oh, black rays emit evil, narcotics, and cyclopean pits. In dark Babylonian towers await, lie dreaming until the time will awake. I don't know about any of this, man. The first line I kind of got makes sense. There's evil narcotics, so there's drugs in Cyclops pits. There's also something dreaming in a Tower of Babel, but a dark Tower of Babel because everything is darkened in this world. Everything is black and darkened. But what any of that means, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of getting some vague concepts, but what man has seen, unknown Kadath, whose dreamy angles confuse and trapped, beyond the frozen waste you will find Hyperborean continent entombed from time. Once again, it feels very prophecy. It's got the rhyme and the meter going on. And we have another, I think, god, otherworldly primordial being name drop. What man has seen the unknown Kadath? It says this thing is has dreamy angles, though it's confused and trapped. Beyond the frozen waste, there's a Hyperborean continent that is trapped in time. Is this where the Babylonian Tower is? I don't know. Black chant mirrors again. Again, everything in this world, if it is colored, it is the color black. Black chant mirrors the song of the stars, open the abyss, dreamt from afar, abominations drawn toward dimension, feed black desires and aid human ascension. So yeah, this sounds straight up Lovecraft. There are these otherworldly abominations that go by the name of Yugoth and Kadath. They come to our dimension to feed on our dark desires and to aid our human ascension. The black chanting grows from caverns below, echo through time, reveal the sign. Interestingly, the whole caverns below thing does kind of line up with Lovecraftian stuff because the ancient city of Cthulhu, like Rulagloth or whatever, comes from under the ocean. And there's like a few primordial gods that live under the water. I think Cthulhu actually might be one of them. I don't know. I am getting a lot of Lovecraft vibes here, though. So yeah, that seems to be it. That there's someone dreaming in a Tower of Babel, which the Tower of Babel was like this thing about uh, the origin of all language, so that we could be confused and not be able to speak to each other. Like before the incident, I don't know what the incident of Tower of Babel was specifically, but like before this, everyone spoke the same language and we can communicate freely. And then at least in the Christian religion, something happened in the Tower of Babel and all the languages were created and given to different people so that we can no longer speak together. So there's a dark Tower of Babel or a tower like Babel. It says Babylonian Tower, not necessarily a Tower of Babel, but a tower like the Tower of Babel in property. I don't know what that might be. That's kind of weird. I'm curious if this is a tower of language or if maybe it's physically designed like the Tower of Babel. Like maybe there's an architectural aspect to the Tower of Babel that we can call other towers Babylonian. I don't know. But there's evil drugs and pits and a dreamer in this tower, and possibly all of this is on a land trapped in time. What was that line? Oh, a continent entombed from time. So, in a pocket dimension over there somewhere. What does all this mean? I mean, yeah, the concept of weird tales, I can get behind that. All these feel like weird tales, slightly combined or slightly connected to each other, but not necessarily. Like you're reading a weird tales novel, and it's got like, three short stories in it or whatever about one is about this island, this continent off in the distance. One is about cyclopses and towers, and one is about Yugoth. I don't know. This song kind of went over my head a little bit musically because I do feel it's just a bit more static than I typically like. Although there were some cool things. I mentioned some of the things I enjoyed in it. Oh yeah, there's also that I forgot about this, the pick scraping that they used at the beginning to showcase rising and falling tones. I thought that was really neat. Lyrically, I mean, it just seems to be some stuff. Yeah, this is a weird thing, right? That's a weird thing, right? Check out this story. This one's kind of weird, and that seems to be what it kind of feels like to me. So, with that said, let's move on. All right, and next up we have Barbarian. We still have 1 second left on Weird Tales, but it's only 1 second.
The wizard.
Yeah, so we're continuing in the vein of what we've been doing so far without much deviation. I do like the extra tom work here. A lot of our stuff has been very snare and bass kick heavy. And so having the tom accentuate the end of these phrases is actually something new. Kind of getting a Deftones vibe off the vocals as well with this specific style. Again, we have another very hard rock riff. It reminds me of something that Black Sabbath would do, early Black Sabbath. here we go again. We have the hard rock vibe. There's this synthesizer tone behind everything. Very wide and large, but still, synthesizer. Interesting, the left guitar keeps cutting out. Huh. That's an interesting idea. And the vocals are just looping over and over, basically doing what the rest of the band is doing on their instruments. Yeah, we're just going to loop it through the next one, and I might take a break after the next track and see what's going on. Oh, another hard stop. This one's I, the Witchfinder.
I am albino. You wish to see me?
That's the third time, I think, that they've used a sound clip, an audio clip for their track. The bass kick really sounds like someone pounding on a door in isolation. I mean, it's always been like that, but this is the first time that I think it really, I heard it by itself, really get to feel that full force of it. It again where the tempo is kind of loose. Sometimes it's a little faster, sometimes it's a little slower. It's really interesting. It adds this nice human component to the playing. It seems to not have just been that one track. It's all over the place. Right there we had doo-doo, the bass hit and then the snare hit with a little bit out of a time with each other. The static once again. Very wide vocal placement. just doubled or widened vocals either. That's double tracked. Because the left one has clean on dead and the right one is harsh. They have different releases as well. So yeah, those are two different takes. This guitar over here is vibrating just enough to keep the sound going, but it sounds like it wants to quit every once in a while. Yeah, you heard that? That was a huge tempo hiccup. Or timing hiccup. But they just picked it right back up and kept going. I gotta admire that. here you're going to be able to constant attack on the base, and yeah, it's just super muddy. Like, I can kind of hear the explosions of attacks, but back that dueling guitar idea from our opening song. They're reaching the same sort of meditative state that we have in the Doom sections earlier by having more movement and exploring linear storytelling. Focus in on timing and tempo, the more sections that I find it's loosened, which is very cool. All right. We got a bit to talk about here. So, Barbarian. A lot of Barbarian was just more of the same. I don't really think there was much in there that really stood out to me. That was a huge deviation from the rest of the album. I'm going to wager, now that we are halfway through the album, well, a little over halfway track-wise, and certainly about halfway, maybe a little over halfway length-wise. I'm probably getting close to the 60% mark here. I'm going to wager that this entire album is based around this one sound, that this isn't a band that puts a variety of sounds in their album. I did notice throughout here that they do include these minor elements. We have the hard rock sections, we have the slow breakdowns, we have more moving sections, we have dueling guitar sections, and we have a synthesizer that shows up every once in a while. So they aren't specifically playing one basic idea throughout the entirety of the album. They are changing up with things, but for the most part, the core sound is the core sound for every bit of this. In that, I'm having a difficult time really telling a lot of these songs apart. In my mind, the big differences are the minor changes. Vinum was the short one, and Funeralopolis was the one that had the Weird Tales was the one that had the super slow moment to it, and Barbarian was the one with the strange warbling synth behind it. Oh, Funeralopolis also had a crashing synth at the end of it, and the Witchfinder is the one with the chaotic dueling guitars. It's really one concept that allows me to differentiate them, because in their core main verse chorus writing, I really don't hear much of a difference in a lot of it, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's a strength and a weakness. If you're here for that really crunchy hard rock riff writing, they've got you covered from start to finish. If you're not, which is my case, yeah, it's just not going to be a good time for it. And I'm really trying to be optimistic in this, as I am with a lot of my stuff. I mean, the whole tagline of the channel is be critical, not cynical. Um, so I am trying to find most of the positive as I can, since my particular bias in casual listening, this does not work with. Um, but I am getting to the point where I'm happy that we only have 4 more tracks to go, and a combined length of 25 minutes left, give or take. I am going to include the silence at the end of Dopethrone, which is going to be 30 seconds of silence, because I think it goes along with some of the ideas that we have so far. But I am going to cut the 5 minutes of silence out of my Transferral. When the track is over, we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to... Now, when the track is over, we're going to skip to the final soundbite that they have on there, which is a really good lead into the next topic, which is soundbites. Why are there so many? We had one at the beginning of, Barbarian said the wizard. The one at the beginning of I the Witchfinder said, I am albino, you wish to see me. And all the verses start with I am albino. And then I guess just our opening track, then we had our intro there about only a couple ways to get out of groups like these. Still though, 3 out of 5 is not an insignificant part of the track, or an insignificant aspect of the album. It is something that continues to show up, and I'm wondering how many more of the songs are going to have sound bites in them as well. I know there's a 2020 clip at the end of track 9, so we're at least looking at 4 out of 9, which is pretty much half of the songs, and there's the possibility of the next 3 tracks also having them. So yeah, I'm just, I mean, obviously they're all thematically related, right, to what the song is doing, especially lyrically. But it's an interesting decision, I think, to do it so often. And I'm curious what their thoughts are, the thought process necessarily behind it that led them to include so many sound bites in their music. And is this something that they always do? This is their 3rd album? I had it there a second ago. There it is. Yes, it's their 3rd album. How many do they have? A lot? Wow, they actually do have more than I was expecting. They are still making music. 2017 was their last one, it looks like. And this one is 2000. And it's their 3rd. They've been making music since the mid-90s. And, well, their latest one's 5 years old now, but I mean, that's a long time to be making music. Knowing that this is from 2000, which I don't know why that never clicked with me. Whenever I think of the 2000s, I tend to think of like 2006 and later. For some reason, 2000 just always feels closer to now than it was. So this actually being in 2000, not in the 2000s, places it at 2 decades ago. This is actually a much older album than I expected, which, I mean, doesn't explain its stronger relationship to hard rock, because we still have people making modern retro hard rock music. But it does place a lot of these decisions, especially production-wise, a little bit more in focus. All right. What was another thing? What do I got right? All right. So yeah, at the end of Barbarian, there was an interesting idea where, the whole album so far is 2 guitars, left and right pan, just really hammering down the riff, the same pitch, everything. They're not harmonizing, they're just layering the same idea on top of itself to make it wider and bigger and thicker. And here, the left guitar just starts cutting out. And honestly, I thought it was my headphones for a second, but I could still hear things out of the left. It was just specifically that guitar. And no, it just that was the that was their riff for the moment, was to keep playing and sometimes cut the sound out. Um yeah, interesting decision. And I feel like I'm saying that more and more because I'm not going to sit up here and try to pretend that I understand why Electric Wizard has been making some of these decisions. There are a lot that make perfect sense to me, and we've already gone over a lot of those. But there's a few decisions that I just can't wrap my head around. They're unique and they don't do anything to detract from the experience. They're certainly positive elements in the music, but I I think they're okay, let me say it this way. I think for some people they'd be positive additions. For me, they're sort of neutral additions. I don't say that they make the song more interesting, but they do just spice it up. It's something different. And I suppose my big complaint so far has been a lot of the repetition. You'd think that a little bit of spice would be what I need to enjoy the song more, but it never really feels like it's a positive spice. It's just another flavor to get lost in all the flavors already in our soup. This metaphor is quickly losing ground. Um, but yeah, it's just it's an interesting decision. My ear perked up to it. I was starting to sort of phase out at this point because I'm just kind of doing the same thing over and over to end the song out. And then this happens. I'm like, oh, well, that's new. By virtue of being new, it's already interesting. But I'm not going to say that it was really a huge moment where like, oh, that recontextualizes the whole song for me. No, it was just it was something fresh. And honestly, that's kind of the bar. That's where the bar is at right now with some of these really long sections. Is just toss me something fresh, please. Um, but yeah, so that was a really interesting decision. Also, split dual wide tracks. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm like, what does that mean? From the very beginning of the song, sorry, the very beginning of the album, we've had this idea of two tracks that are pretty much doing the same thing. In fact, our guitars have been doing it from the very beginning. I think it's really neat to sometimes get that reality check, that remembers, like, hey, remember that these are two guitars and not one. Hey, our vocals are very big, but you remember it's two tracks, not one. And a lot of the times they're doing the exact same thing, and it's easy to forget, at least for me, that it is two individually recorded tracks and not just one wall of sound, which is how I tend to hear a lot of this. Um, and having the left guitar cut out was a reminder of that. And then we had the vocals in, yeah, Witchfinder. Was it Witchfinder? Yeah, it was Witchfinder, where they decided to go in two different routes. One side was harsh the whole time, the other one was clean and maybe edged into a harsh on the final syllable. Their attacks were different. They released the sentence at different times, so you had this staggered release. And a lot of this album so far has been this unified wall of sound, and it's really cool every once in a while to get that reminder of, yeah, everybody's working together to, send this unified sound out, but we are listening to a variety of instruments, and you should remember that because sometimes we're going to split them apart and have them do their own things, which kind of leads into this next idea in that I think it was I the Witchfinder, the dueling guitars at the end. This is really interesting. If you followed along with the lyrics to I the Witchfinder, it's about this dude named Albino. He is the evil Witchfinder. And he says, I cleanse her sins for witchcraft. I condemn her. My implements of torture are bloody red. My convictions of sorcery will leave you dead. And then verse 2 says, I'm albino, evil witchfinder. I know she's guilty before I find her. I'll pierce her flesh to find his mark. Torture my pleasure, true servant of the dark. I am the witchfinder. This song is about basically a person who finds witches and tortures them into, uh, I would suppose, pleading guilty of witchcraft, and then he can kill them because now they're witches. Which is just he. So problematic. Um, I wonder if it's based on anything specific. Maybe like the Harlem witch trials, or I don't know if there's witch trials in other countries. I know it was really big in the U.S. In Salem, but I said Salem, and my brain thought Harlem, and then I was like, what if there was a comedy horror film called Harlem Witch Trials? Now I want to go see if someone's made that. Yeah, Salem though. You know, we had the witch trials in I don't even know, it's 1600s I think that was. Um, yeah, for the life of me, I can't remember what decade that was in, or century, sorry. But yeah, so I don't know if it's based in that or maybe if it's based off of film. I mean, they did use a soundbite at the beginning, and I wonder if that's related to a specific film or a radio drama or something. And because the soundbite was "I am albino, you wish to see me," and then the verse is "I am albino, the evil witchfinder," and goes into what this person does. So is it based off of a fictional character? Is it based off of a real character? You know, I don't know. What was albino a real person who went about torturing witches? I don't know. Anyways, what I'm getting at here is the song is about a dude who tortures women to get ill confessions of witchcraft so that he can kill them for being witches. And the ending of the song is these dueling guitars. And a lot of the music so far, like I've mentioned, is really EQ'd down low. And a lot of the notes are really low and heavy to give it this heavy weight, this real strong meatiness to a lot of the stuff. And this time, though, the guitars rise up. And this is different from the dueling guitars we saw earlier in the album. I think it was track two. Yeah, it was the intro to track two, because I have that written down pretty early. So that was, Funeralopolis. That doesn't sound right. Maybe it is. I don't remember. Anyways, here, though, instead of having that hard rock kind of bluesy battle of the guitars where mostly they're supporting each other, this is just two guitars playing high pitched stuff at the same time. No acknowledgement of the person, the guitar next to them. There's nothing here that lines up. There's no harmony. There's nothing consonant about it. It ends up getting to a point where it's super noisy with both guitars are just shredding, not for a single care what the other guitar is playing, whether they have good note dyads, whether they have any sort of cohesion at all. It's just noise. It's just wailing. They made these guitars scream like people being tortured. That's what I got out of that ending. It is the first time in the song that I have made a thematic connection between the lyrics and the music, and I think it's honestly the most impactful section of the album so far. But it also just kind of felt chaotic and nonsensical musically. It was just a lot of stuff that didn't fit together. So I think they achieved their themes, and I do think it's my favorite part of the album artistically, but it still didn't hit me in any way. I've heard some music that is designed to sound like humans before, and that stuff, sometimes it moves me, sometimes it doesn't. This didn't move me, but I enjoy the attempt to connect the lyrics with the music here. So we've already done the lyrics, the Witchfinder. Let's back it up a second and hit Barbarian. We have our soundbite, the wizard. That's it. It says, he left the northern hills to seek his fortune, a lone barbarian with only death lust to guide. But he carved a kingdom of stone, King Conan sitting on his bloody throne. Is this a song about Conan, the barbarian? His black mane sweeps across his face, grim and silent with steely blue gaze, like a panther ready to strike, his blade crashes down to end your life. So, so the chorus says Conan rules with an iron fist, but for some reason my brain was like, Conan rules with an iron fist. And like, that's definitely not what how the lyrics were sung. I don't know why my brain went there. I'm getting a little tired here. It's 6 o'clock p.m. I'm definitely not in the right mindset to be analyzing lyrics. Anyways, let's see where we're at. So yeah, this is Barbarian, goes across the lands. He's got a blade that kills people. He rules with an iron fist. Many people, they look up to him. Battle prowess, a true measure of a man. You think you're civilized, but you'll never understand. The master swordsman of Hyborian age. His name is a legend to this very day. Even gods cower when his sword is unleashed. Nothing dare face him, neither man nor beast. Cut a bloody swath across his battlefield, red mist rising, break your human shields, slash to pieces is to be your fate, unleash berserker rage, no one shall escape. You think you're civilized, but you'll never understand. Over and over and over. That's how it ends. And I think this was the part where I was like, even the vocals are just looping. Much like the music. A lot of the guitar work is just, 1 to 2 bar phrases ad nauseum. So, yeah, it's really interesting to sometimes hear the vocals get pushed into that realm as well. No metaphor here, though. I'm pretty sure this is all very surface level read. It's a song about Conan the Barbarian. That's it. Nothing special going on. So, I guess at this point we're going to move on to The Hills Have Eyes. Oh, it says this song is an instrumental. No lyrics for that one then. Wait, this is also the 40... Yeah, this song's 40 seconds. So we'll do this one, and then We Hate You, which is 5 minutes. And if I don't have anything to add at that point, we'll move right into Dopethrone, which is 10 minutes. I said we're going to cut out the last 30 seconds. There, I will definitely take a break before we head into Mind Transferral to finish this video up. All right. So here we go with The Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, so we're getting some more of that hard rock bluesiness in here. Some more tom work. Okay. A nice little reprieve, I suppose. I'm not sure how it fits in the larger idea of the album. We're back to that very brutal tone that I remember from the opening of the album.
You see, man is a rather dismal creature.
Another soundbite.
Look around. You'll see what's there. Fear and frightened people who kill what they can't understand.
Alright, so they took that line up an octave. We're back to that wall of sound. It is just brutal. I think the toms and the bass kick are even more punchier now than they were in the rest of the album. This is a very aggressive song, even compared to a lot of the other aggression we've heard so far. tom work on those fills. Interesting decision to have a lead guitar here. I do like how it's an extension of the vocals, or in a sense the vocals are a extension of this lead guitar line. What? This album continues to get larger and grittier and dirtier as it goes on. There's actually a delay on the vocals here. Yeah, it's a slight delay, ever so slight, but the right comes in first. the guitar so low here. It's so interesting, the solo at the end of the last track was louder and did less, it had less reason to be in the spotlight. Now we have a guitar line that deserves to be heard and was suppressed. That's the door knocking right there. We had the nice retardando, but where are we going with? Are we just? We're just gonna hold this out, aren't we? Because this was the old album closer. Are they gonna pick this back up? Because it felt like it just fell apart. But they still got 3 minutes ahead of them. Yep, okay. There's another part, they rushed on that when they sped up the notes. It's so bizarre. was strange. I feel like they're just getting looser and looser right here. Oh, man. I mean, here's the thing. This feels like an album closer. And it's the title track on top of that. Oh, this doesn't have the 30 seconds of silence. This only has 10. Then let's discuss. What do we got here? Oh yeah, so The Hills Have Eyes. I mean, I really liked where that was going. I do dig their bluesier side, their hard rock melody writing. We just don't get to see it too often. I enjoyed it at the beginning of Funeralopolis. I enjoyed it right here for the 20 seconds is around. It always feels like it's teased when I think that they could really lean into it well. I'm curious if any future albums combined this really hard, heavy, gritty tone with more of that melodic playing. I think that is my biggest hang up with this album, is that there's just too much riffage and not enough melody. And the few times that they begin to delve into melodic elements, it's, we did it for 5 seconds, we're fine. Let me go play this one riff for 2 hours. And I mean, like I said, it's whatever they want, and they obviously have an audience for it. I'm not going to say that that's the wrong way to make music. I can't get behind that at all. They write some really smooth melody lines and then just don't spend any time with them. But they will gladly just repeat the same lick over and over and over for 5, 6, 7 minutes. And that's just not the kind of music I like to listen to. So, yeah, The Hills Have Eyes is just the biggest tease. They introduced an idea, and when I was finally getting into it, I was reminded, oh, yeah, this is a 40-second song, and they faded right out of it. And I'm just, that would upset me. So I had talked about Witch Hunter, whatever that song was called, I, the Witchfinder, having one of the most thematic, cohesive ideas across the track, and I think that just got overturned by We Hate You, which, by the way, is our 5th track with voice clips in it. So, and then I think Dopethrone had some, which would make it 6 out of 9. So 66% of the album has voice clips on it, which just brings me back to that initial question. Is this something they always do? And if they do, why? If they don't, why this album? Well, what's the purpose in a lot of this? Anyways, We Hate You is very straightforward. It is their most aggressive track. I had mentioned that when it came on. The whole album kind of sits at a very strong 9 or 10. It very rarely lets up on that. It is just a very wide, abrasive, full wall of sound. And somehow, without raising the volume, they made We Hate You feel larger than any other song. I don't know if that was me. I don't think it was me. Maybe it was because we just came off of The Hills Have Eyes, where we have that nice bluesy idea going on. Maybe it's the contrast there. I don't know. This opening punched, and lyrically, it's just about hating people. It's a very nihilistic track. The intro, the voice clip, I think sums it all up. You see man as a rather dismal creature. Well, yes, why not? Look around, you'll see what's there. Fear and frightened people who kill what they can't understand. And then we have lines like, a seed of hate from the day I was born. Hopeless and drugged, my black emotions seethe. Uh, Black nebula seething in my brain, then your world brings me down again. Um, and I guess that's about it. But there's one interesting line because everything else is just very vague, right? I'm full of hate. And I try to get away from it and I can't. There's one line it says, so I'll take my dad's gun and walk down the street. I'll have my vengeance now with everyone I meet. And that's it. That's interesting because, like I said, everything else is vague. It's about a feeling of nihilism, of not nihilism, misanthropy. Yeah, just general disdain for people. And I think that kind of comes through as We Hate You, the title, and then, of course, the idea in our intro that people are just rather dismal creatures. So I think there's just this general contempt for the human race here, but there's this very direct line here about, just going out and killing people, anyone that I meet. And I think that's it's an interesting aspect to it. I'm kind of curious about these people overall. I don't I'm not going to sit here and say that this song influences people to, commit murder or anything like that. I'm a huge proponent of uh, allowing the freedom of art. I believe that art allows us to be extremely creative and explore dark topics in a safe environment. And I don't think that any darkness in art is directly correlated to any real world action. But I do think that that's a very interesting line to put in here because the rest of the album, while wholly being negative in a lot of ways and talking about some pretty dark topics, doesn't ever go into this realm. Even this song as a whole, I think, is about people who might feel empty and cold and don't have that love for their fellow man, but it just kind of is there, right? It's just an aspect of that person, just emotions without actions on them. And that line brings the action to the emotion. And it's the only line. Nothing else ever gets on that level. It just talks about how this person feels hopeless and loveless and cold and hateful. Um, and they want vengeance, but they don't act on it until that line comes up, says, I'm going to act on it. And I don't know, it feels out of place to me. It has a lot of impact. But the song is just about hating people. This is the loudest track on the song. It's the grittiest, it's the gnarliest. And I think it just kind of comes together thematically stronger than anything else. It feels like this is the lyrics that they really want to make for this type of music. Um, Going along with this, I was talking about how each song is getting grittier and nastier, and I want to go back to the beginning of the album and see if I really feel that way, or if it's just because Hills Have Eyes kind of gave me the soft reset where everything sounds loud and intense again. But it really does feel like their grittiness, their dirtiness, their compression, their distortion is getting amplified as the album progresses, and each track is just getting more and more gnarly. Um, it's interesting. I think the lyrics kind of dipped in the middle. We had that nice metaphor between sorcery and drug use, and then we had a nice comment on the way that humans destroy the planet they're on. And then we were talking about Conan, the Barbarian, and uh, I think a song about a real person or a real event or another fictional story possibly about this witch hunter. And then we had this weird tales part where we talked about Lovecraftian monsters. And then we get back to this though, and this is a return to that semi-political commentary we had from Funeralopolis, except this is not really political commentary. This is more of a, I don't know, in some ways it feels sort of like a manifesto, which in 2000 probably would not have. One second. In 2000, probably would not have hit the same way, but after seeing so many shootings in America, um, with manifestos like this about hating everyone around you and feeling that this would be the best thing for you to do, and feeling empty and hopeless, and whatever garbage these people are being spewed and have internalized, this song just hits differently 2 decades later. And that one line still trips me up. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. um And like I said, one, it's art, right? So I'm going to defend its existence. Um, and two, just time period differences, right? But yeah, this is easily going to be what I think is the most impressive track, the one where they marry their themes the best, but also the one I will probably never touch again. Whereas the other songs I would not mind revisiting. This one just does not work for me at all. So then we get to Dopethrone though. Oh wait, two things. Okay, I don't know, a couple things we're gonna talk about first. I had landed on this idea early on that every song features the word black. So our debut track, we have the Black Planet and the Black Drug. Funeralopolis, we have the Black Asteroid. The Weird Tales, we have a lot of them here. We got the Black Rays, and that was it, huh? Yeah, we have Black Ray. Oh, and the Black Chant Mirrors. Barbarian has the black hair of Conan and him looking like a Black Panther. Witchfinder, I checked twice. There's nothing. There's only one color mentioned. It's the only time any color other than black has been mentioned, and it's red, to speak about how bloody the torture is that this Witchfinder implements on these women. It is an interesting deviation because track 6 doesn't have lyrics. Track 7, We Hate You, we talk about a black emotion. We also have a black nebula in the dude's brain. Dopethrone, we have the black sun, we have black amps, we have, I think there's a third one in here, the black monolith. I think they're kind of making up for the lack of the word black in the Witchfinder. And I'm going to check real quick on Mind Transferral. Oh, Mind Transferral is an instrumental with that sound clip at the end. So yeah, every song that has lyrics, anytime a color is mentioned, it is black. Except for I, the Witchfinder, which mentions red once and black 0 times. This is something else I would probably ask Electric Wizard if I ever got a chance to talk to them. What was up with this? Oh, you know what? Dopethrone also mentions green. We have Green Throne. Makes me want to go back and see if there's other colors. But it seems like colors are very sparse, and if they are picked, it's black almost every time. And that gold throne only comes up once, and it is a gold throne raised to a black sun. So, I mean, I don't know what to make of it, but it's really interesting that a lot of their lyrics aren't descriptive, but if they need a color, that's the color they choose. Everything is blackened and darkened, except for a throne and except for blood. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up real quick. And then the other thing I talked about in the reaction, but I want to bring up again, is that I Hate You had a guitar idea at the end where the vocals finished their line, and then we had this right pan guitar that was doing a melody. Not a strong one, but a melody nonetheless. And then our vocals come in and pick a few key notes that the melody is on to say the words "We hate you" on them. And as such, there's a bit of an extension between the vocals and the guitar, where the vocals are emphasizing key notes and the guitar is playing them and filling in spaces between and around them and creating a melody. It is a really nice way of layering ideas there by utilizing one concept and expanding upon it for a variation for another instrument, playing them simultaneously so that we can have a lead melody with an emphasized rhythmic structure against it. Very nice, and while it's not super complex, it is a huge deviation since there's so little melody being played throughout this album. I kind of enjoyed that section. I thought it was a nice deviation from everything we have seen prior, and an attempt to really bring in some of those hard rock bluesy lines into their heavy gritty style, rather than separating them as we have seen so many times in the past. Then Dopethrone comes out, and somewhere in here we break for a guitar solo. I think it was like 5 minutes in, and I can kind of hear what the guitar is doing. It's got some really neat stuff, but it's being drowned out by everything. It is not given that amplification, that volume boost that our previous guitar did. In fact, it might even have been the same guitarist. But prior to this, the guitar was doing sort of an auxiliary idea. It wasn't a super strong melody. It wasn't a solo. And at best, we find out later that is an extension of the vocal aspect, but it gets given prominent spotlight. And now that we have a guitar actually carrying the song and playing a lead melody, a linear melody even, it is hidden and pushed into the mix and difficult to hear. And it is maddening, so maddening that they finally, well, for the second time, because I'm already a little ticked off about The Hills Have Eyes. The second time they have teased me about, hey, here's something that you actually want. We're only going to give it half to you. Last time they cut it off after 20 seconds. This time it was a shorter solo that they buried into the song. And I'm just so tired of it, man. I know that Dopethrone can deliver something that I would enjoy. They have shown me they have the chops for it. But at least in this era of their writing, they didn't want to do that. And maybe they never did. Maybe there is no album that is the electric wizard that I want to hear. And that is perfectly fine. But I know that they have the ability to create something that I would enjoy, and they continue to hamstring any attempt at doing that. And maybe that's a commentary within the song as a whole, the album as a whole, is that a lot of the lyrics have been negative. A lot of the music has been gritty and dirty and about the darkness of life, about the darkness of both fiction and nonfiction. And maybe having that beauty in here is something they didn't want to include. So anytime that they do bring it up, it is quickly faded or quickly destroyed or hidden as a way to showcase the realities of our life and the stories that we consume. I don't know. I could be digging right there. They could have just been really high and decided they didn't know what they were doing and just messed with the EQ on this track, and it was supposed to be louder. I have no idea. But yeah, let's get into the lyrics for Dopethrone, and we're gonna head out into the final track. So we got Dope Priest, Prophecy, Doom Mantra, From Beneath the Sea, Green Throne Raised to the Black Sun, Doom Child Wake to Planet Song. So there's a priest who smokes and has a prophecy that's also a mantra that's also doomy. It's a doom mantra. That from beneath the scene there will be a green throne raised with a doomed child who wakes to the planet song. What? It says, rise, black amps tear the sky, feedback will free your mind and set you free. Rise, black amps tear the sky, rift-hewn altar, wreathed in smoke and weed. Dopethrone in this land of sorcery, Dopethrone vision through THC, Dopethrone feedback will free, Dopethrone 3 wizards crowned with weed. So, yeah, there's probably no point in looking at anything deeper into that intro line. This is very much about some sort of weed-based prophecy about a doomed world. Where doom, actually maybe not a doomed world, where doom metal sets people free. The feedback sets your mind free. Amps tear through the sky. We have riffs. I don't know what kind of, a riff-hewn altar. All right. Wreathed in smoke and weed, there's a land of sorcery with visions through THC. So you take your drugs, you see your visions. The music's feedback sets you free, and there's three wizards crowned with weed. Those are the electric wizards, I would assume. This is a three-person band, I'm guessing. Bass, vocals, drums, guitar. Guitar and vocals are the same. Yep, looks like a three-person band. Black monolith charged with unlight. Sacrifice to forever midnight. Towers, titan sonic waves. Sorcery, necromantic slaves. Rise, 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 and smoke the Dopethrone. So yeah, this is a fantasy world they've created that's weed based, and there's a prophecy for a child that will waken the planet, and through both doom metal and weed, that's where their whole, I don't know, fantasy world comes from. They have wizards that smoke weed to get visions, and they have a dope throne and amps and the feedback from the amps and riffs are the things that set your mind free. I mean, it's inventive. I'll give you that. But it does seem a bit more funner than the rest of the albums on the track. Although I guess singing about Conan isn't exactly a serious matter either. It is a huge change of pace from We Hate You, though. But I guess a song about how weed and doom metal can shape a fantasy world being played in doom metal, probably by people who are stoned. I mean, you don't get much more meta than that. So I guess there's some thematic cohesion too. The end of this album's really killing it as far as being an artistic work of art. I guess the last thing I want to talk about is bringing back up the tempo. The more times, or the more that we get into this album, the more that I listen to the way the music is played, the more often I feel things out of time. It is kind of bonkers how often it's there. We've actually had a couple of hiccups where I've been thrown off. I don't know about you guys, but I get thrown off rhythmically because somebody's just way too early or way too late on a hit, and it just messes that whole section up, but they just keep going. And they included it, which I think is pretty awesome. Included it in the final master, and yeah, it's just, I want to point it out as a negative because it kind of is. There's a big difference between human fallibility in that not everything is perfectly rhythmically set, right? There's a difference between programming your MIDI or perfectly taking specific, tiny takes of each of your licks to make a perfect take that you never actually did because everything is specifically on the beat. There's a big difference between that and the natural, slightly off time that you're going to get with playing just naturally, right? Big difference between those two. But there's an even larger difference between that natural human playing and the sloppy playing that's in here. And I say sloppy with the most respect. I really do. Because there are a lot of moments in here that are just like, wow, you guys are really bending the tempo. And I can tell you it's not intentional, right? Unless it is, right? Like I said, there could be somebody leading it. And like, we're going to go here now, and then we're going to hit here. But the more I listen to the songs, the less I hear those points. In that specific song, the first time we heard it, what was that? Funeralopolis, I think. Oh no, that was Weird Tales. It was one of those really slow doomy sections, but I'm beginning to hear it in even the faster sections, which would not really have these specified downbeats for note changes. And there's still these temporal anomalies going on. There is a real looseness to the tempo in this album, and I don't know who it is. It could be everybody for all I know, where they're just constantly just a hair out of sync with everyone else. And it just creates a song that feels very out of the pocket. And like I said, at times it even completely throws off entire beats, but they just keep rolling with it. And it's, to me, it takes a lot of guts to have that level of rhythmic imperfection. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it works, right? If I really hone in on it, I'm like, oh, they were a bit late there. They're a bit early there. The beat, I mean, the tempo is now, 4 or 5 BPM slower. I don't think they intended for a tempo change. It's just the drummer was a bit behind and the guitarist and the bassist joined in on it. And it's just, to me, it just takes a lot of guts to say, okay, we didn't play it perfectly, but it's not about perfection. Release it. And, but it works. It does. Like I said, if I zoom into it, I'm like, yeah, that's off. But if I'm just chilling with it, you just kind of go with it. And I think that speaks to the ability of, or maybe to the positive elements of having more humanity in music. Even if it's imperfect, it's still listenable. Even if it's, I mean, this isn't even like super imperfect, because it's not like the Shags level of rhythmically being off, but it's really not perfect either. We probably have a good 5% of human error being involved here as far as the rhythmic element goes, and it's still listenable. It's still groovable. You can still move along with it. And I think really aiming for that 0% that a lot of modern rock and pop aim for, where everything is perfect. It works at times for specific genres and styles, but it's not something that I think should be striven for. People should strive for across the board. Strove? What's the past tense of strive? Anyways, yeah, I think that this is a real clear-cut example of how even moving outside of what I would perceive as a good range of error. Like, there's more error than I would let into my playing here. It still works. So I think that, I might even be a little strict in my recording, and I know that the modern music industry is even more strict than that. And they really don't have to be. All right, let's finish this out. We have Mind Transferral. This is a, let's say, 9-minute instrumental, followed by that 2020 soundbite. All right, let's dig into this. Okay, the bass is absolute beast. It's wild how much the bass can still fill up the center channel even though both guitars are off doing their own thing and the bass is still holding down the fort. So the bass is actually getting a little bit too muddy, too powerful. And it's creating a lot of extra noise that has to contrast with the guitars. And the guitars are already creating too much noise. It's overwhelming. bass is just too much. It really is. Never thought I'd say that. scrapes. It's kind of nice. I think we only heard that one other time. Yeah, and the drums, once again, are kind of ignoring the toms altogether. It's all snare and bass.
That's terrifying. And look, if this happens to your kid, or if you look at this, and if you have children, you say, could this happen to my child out of some kind of rebellion? How would a parent be aware?
Many youngsters are into it, teenagers and younger, and the clues are there. The satanic symbol 666. If you see that written on your child's notebook, if they're into heavy metal music, if they're associating with strange characters or drifting off to ceremonies and not explaining where they're at, it's well worth it for parents to look deeper and ask, what exactly are you up to?
And with whom?
Because this is serious.
It could be harmless. It could just be a diversion. But it could also be deadly serious.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, oh, there's that laugh again. I don't remember. That was at the beginning of one of the tracks. What a ride. What a ride. Ah. I mean, there wasn't really anything there that I think changed my opinion or anything that I would additionally talk about. I do really enjoy that we had a couple of more of those bluesier guitar lines. They showed up infrequently. I'd say there was probably about 2 or 3 minutes worth in that 9 minute song. A lot of it was just repetition again. And I mean, if you enjoy this, more power to you 100%. I think this is the second album we've maybe it hasn't. I gotta go back and look what albums we've checked out. Maybe it was something I checked out on my own time. I feel like recently though, I had to listen to another one. I don't remember if it was for an album review or like I said, if it was on my own time. I can't get into stuff like this. I can't. I like the overall tone, that grittiness, the dirtiness with the clean vocals, even if the cleans are dirtied up in production, and there's a couple of harshes in there, but that really dirty guitar sound, the bluesy guitar lines, the clean vocals, the bass presence. I like a lot of what's going on here. I just wish the songs were either more compact or more varied, one of the two. A lot of these tracks, at least in my eyes, don't justify their lengths. And that's really my big hang up here. It's not necessarily the music itself, it's the length of some of the sections. Um, and I think that's going to be my big takeaway here. And from what I understand, this is probably Electric Wizard's most popular album. Maybe even their best, according to some people. And I mean, I can see it. If this is what you're into, they deliver it nonstop. And I don't know what what doom metal's situation looked like in the 2000s. I don't have any sort of reference for that. This could be just a very prominent album that led the way to modern doom metal, and maybe that's why it was selected for the album week because of its historical prominence. I don't know. This could have been groundbreaking. And I do find some neat things in here. This is doom plus occasional bluesy hard rock with clean vocals, which is not something I hear too often. Um, And it is some very nasty production, which is neat. But it's not for me, unfortunately. Hit me up in the comments about other Electric Wizard tracks. Like I said, I really like the bluesy guitar lines and I want more of that. Do they do that on any other album? Um, yeah, I guess that's about it. I don't think there's anything I want to extrapolate on. What was up with the synthesizers though? They popped up in like two, maybe three tracks as these auxiliary instruments that really came in only at specific periods, did their thing and left, and then that was it. Really interesting. Like I said, nice variety, especially in the opening 4 or 5 tracks, to have some of those moments, but completely felt underutilized. Although it did give those opening tracks a little bit of extra character and identity to them. I do miss that drug wizard type thing that they had going on at the beginning. I know it wasn't a concept album. I shouldn't be judging it on what it didn't do. I should be judging it only on what it did and what I feel they attempted to do. But I do feel like that was a missed opportunity. I thought that was a neat way to start it, and I kind of wish they had leaned into that a bit more. But like I said, I understand it's not really what they were going for, and that's fine. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on Electric Wizard's Dopethrone. Interesting album. I'm glad I listened to it, but I don't see myself returning to it again. Um, I wouldn't mind if someone turned it on, but yeah, I'd probably be zoning out in a couple of sections, which again is maybe what I'm supposed to be doing. The active listening I don't think is what the album was designed for, nor do I think it suits it very well. So. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Put yours down in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the album, anything you enjoyed in it, anything you didn't like. You agree with me on things, disagree with me on things, want to expand or correct me on stuff I've said. Go ahead and do that. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. Has everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, follow me on Twitter, join the Patreon and support the channel. You can follow me and join me on Discord. I'm pretty active there, and there's a really big community of like 300 or 400 people, I think now. Let me check real quick. I don't typically say this at the end of my videos, so I'm kind of intrigued now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a fast way to check this, unfortunately. There's a lot of people in here, though. And it's a really neat place to be. So, well, there's 64 people online and 260 offline. So, yeah, I mean, that's not too bad. About 350 people in there. It's pretty active. We talk about everything, mostly music. There's a lot of music channels, but we also have side discussions for tech and gear. And the composition jam is in there if you've ever wanted to make music in a very low stakes, low stress situation. And we talk about video games and movies and, all sorts of stuff. We also have an album club, which is really cool. Anyways, if that sounds interesting, the Discord's there. Go ahead and check it out. And, all the other links in that Linktree box thingy. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. All right. Wait, that's Jeeves' thing. Um, I don't know. You guys know what to do. What do I normally say? I'll see you guys next time. And Monday, we're starting next week's theme of blank of the blank, where the song has to be blank of the blank, like the joy of the ride or something. I don't know. Has to follow those lines though, and special selections and everything else. We usually do 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. All right. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.